Today I'm joined by Ed Morris, Technical Manager from Altecnic. Hi Ed.
Morning.
Thanks very much for joining me. Tell viewers a little bit more about the company.
Okay, so Altecnic are the UK arm of Cleffi, which are obviously an Italian company. We are one of, I think, 17 sales companies around the world. The reason that we are Altecnic and not Cleffi as all the other branches is because we also sell our own stuff along with sort of lots of reflex vessels, etc. as well. So alongside the Cleffi range, we have our own offering as well. So that's the reason that we are Altecnic. But yeah, supported by Italy, with training and product support and stuff. So yeah, it's a good place to be.
So you're a very active member of our association,
Yep.
the BMA. Why do you think that's important for you as a business?
I think it's important to be part of trade associations, especially ones like yourselves where you're at the forefront of what you do, because we like to A, get our name out there, but B, I think it's also important for us to, as a company, understand what the marketplace is, what the market requires when we talk about compliance and products, etc. We want to be at the forefront of what that is really. So I think it's important, with you guys being so forward in what you do, it gives us a position to be part of that as well, So.
You mentioned compliance there, and that's something that obviously we're really into at
Yeah.
the moment. Why is it so high on your agenda as a company?
I think when it comes to compliance, etc., you've got to take for instance, product compliance when it comes to safety. So I know we're going to talk about mixing valves and stuff, but to making sure that we're engineering and manufacturing to the high standards and to the standards that the market expect. Standards are there for a reason. They're not there to be awkward. They're there for a design purpose, and it also adds, some of them are USP to the products, etc. But I think it's important that we put the right products into the marketplace with the right application, performing to the right standards. I think is probably the most important thing, and especially TMVs when it comes to safety and things like that. We need to be there and they're performing where we should be.
So for me, standards are all about everyone raising their game together.
Yeah.
Is that how you view it as well?
100%. I think sometimes there can be what we call a race to the bottom sometimes, and I understand, I fully appreciate that there is a cost-driven element to what people put into the marketplace nowadays, but I think when it comes to standards, it makes us, yes, a level playing field, but it also ups the game for the manufacturers so that we are putting the best products into the marketplace, but also supporting the likes of some of the campaigns that go on with health and safety, etc., to say, yes, our product complies to this. We've gone through the rigorous testing that is taken place to say our product does have that level of quality, and we can put it out there really. So, I think it is important that, yes, we will have a level playing field, but if you're going to buy our products or any other manufacturer's products, you're going to get the best standard and the best product that can be out there really. So I think it is important.
How much of a problem is it, some of your competitor companies supplying products onto the market that perhaps don't meet the standards they should?
It is a problem because, unfortunately, we work in a world now where everything is driven by cost. And somebody will go into a merchant or wherever they buy their product from and they'll say, okay, well, I've got two valves there that are going to give me particularly the same output, but one costs £3 cheaper than the other. I know which one I'll buy. But is it manufactured to the same standard? Yes, okay, it's got an approval, but is there anything different about it? Is there any sort of different materials used? Is there any different technologies used? So I think compliance, it does hinder you in a way because people say, yes, we've got approval to that, but it's how that is taken to marketplace. Now, certainly us as Cleffi, we manufacture all of our own parts. We have our own brass stamping factory, we have our own plastics factory, and we have our own assembly plant. So we know that 100% of our product or 99% of our product is controlled from within, so we have complete control over that, whereas some of the other people on the marketplace may not necessarily manufacture themselves, buying from a third party, so you can lose a little bit of that sort of control and quality, I think, at times. But
so what would you like policymakers, such as the government or regulators, to do differently to really drive compliance?
I think certainly in our industry or the bathroom industry, I think they're quite good really. I know we've had certain issues recently about the AUK with air gaps and stuff like that, and enforcing what regulations and compliance is there. I don't think necessarily we can do much more, but I think it's just about how we police it, I think, because the standards are written or controlled by somebody, but then how do we enforce that going forward? We do hear some horror stories, especially from, we'll call them low-cost country suppliers, where they will give a compliant product to be approved, and then all of a sudden the production batch is completely different. But as far as they're concerned, they've got an approved product because it's gone through the approval process. So I think the compliance and the driving it from our side and the government is okay. I think the policing side is probably somewhere where we can look a little bit better at how we do that, moving forward, I think. So.
And obviously, you know about the BMA's Code of Ethics and
Absolutely.
sign up to it as a member.
Yeah.
Is that something which you think your customers should be looking for, that people are a member of the BMA participating in that Code of Ethics?
Absolutely. I think, like I say, you guys, are at the forefront of what you're doing, and putting these sort of codes of practice together is always beneficial, I think, for certainly us as manufacturers. Getting the marketplace to buy into that, I think, is difficult, certainly I think for you guys. But I think the more quality assurance we can put around a product, the better it becomes from all of us. Really. I'm not just saying that from an Altecnic point of view. Obviously there's other manufacturers out there as well that operate in a similar way to what we do, and it gives us all that level playing field to sort of drive it forward, I think, really, and improve and increase the standards as well, which I think is important. So
yeah, you're obviously trying to become a brand of choice, or improve. But yeah, being an even bigger brand of choice within the installer market.
Yeah.
What's awareness of compliance and sustainability issues like within that field?
I think it's different. I mean, we talk about compliance and we talk about a customer base. I mean, who is our customer base? Our customer base as a company is a merchant. Mm-hmm. But in my eyes as a technical manager, my customer base is an installer or a plumber. So we're talking about two different markets here. So the merchant will buy generally on cost. They will buy on specifications as well, but it's a cost-driven exercise for them. But I think where my difficulties come is talking to the people that I struggle to talk to because of who we are as a company. I don't talk to plumbers, I talk to merchants and stuff. So, and from what I know, there are different types of plumbers out there. The guys who are really clued up in what they are, they understand the standards, they understand the approval mechanism, they understand why they need that. But then again, there are other plumbers out there who do it for a living, have probably done it for some time, but haven't necessarily moved forward with what that is. And I think that's a reflection on how we control it in the UK. I know some of the other countries in Europe, you have to be a licensed plumber, essentially. You have to have a card and a ticket, etc. Similar to what we have with GasSafe. But what we don't have is a qualification, City and Guilds or an MVQ, etc., to be a plumber. So anyone could essentially set up to be a plumber, and not necessarily understand or have the qualifications to push it through, which is a difficulty at times.
Would you like to see that?
I think it's something that I think it would bring a lot more control and a lot more sort of comfort for the end user, I think, at times. Everybody needs a plumber. We all need them. I sort of see sometimes, a lot of social media plumbers who are quite forward-thinking in what they do now. They'll put sort of text message trains on social media that I've had from a customer saying, how cheap can you do X, Y, or Z? And I get everyone's under a cost, but the cost comes at a price, if you know what I mean, and it's not always with the quality of the install that you get. So I think if there was a sort of common market that was brought together, I think it would be beneficial for everybody, really. Certainly, you guys as an association, that the people who are fitting the products that we try and push through have been fitted in the right way. Because sometimes, we generally do get some horror stories come through with how products are used. But how do we control that? I don't know at the moment. So.
It's a difficult one, isn't it?
It is, and I don't want to, and I'm not here, sort of slating any plumbers, far from it. They're the lifeblood to my company. But there are some really good ones out there, but there are also some not so good ones out there, if you know what I mean. So we have to be quite conscious of that, I think. And
for me, there's no clear answer to this. We've all got to work together to try 100%. And improve the compliance of products entering the marketplace, the way that they're installed, and also just the question which customers are asking. But how you achieve that's difficult.
I don't know. Like I say, it's regulated different. I lived in Spain for a couple of years, so it was controlled differently over there. Obviously, it's controlled differently in Italy, Switzerland from a previous employer. See how they do it over there. Everyone does it their own way. We just don't really have, bar GasSafe, any other real control over what we do. Which can create problems at times, unfortunately.
So Altecnic is part of an international group headquartered in Italy. Yeah. How as a business are you addressing this really live issue that we're facing at the moment around coronavirus?
I think there's two ways. We either address it or we monitor it. At the moment we're monitoring it. We are driven by what is coming out of Italy. We've today had a communication come from headquarters in Italy to say that There is no impact at the moment. There is no restriction on movement of goods. There's no restriction on their production. So as far as that is concerned, we're okay at the moment. Obviously, that may possibly change over time. Italy seems to be changing by the day, how they're doing things, obviously with putting schools on lockdown. Unfortunately, we are based in northern Italy, which is obviously the hub of where it seems to be quite bad at the moment. But as it stands, as we sit here today, we are still as we are moving forward, and there's no restrictions, so no lack of supply or support from Italy. So yeah, we're lucky and we're okay at the moment. So
good stuff. It's a question I had to ask.
No, you're more than welcome.
So Altecnic are a manufacturer of thermostatic mixing valves. Yeah. For any lay people watching today's video, tell us a bit more about that product.
Okay, so a thermostatic mixing valve is there to essentially give you a desired set temperature of safe to use hot water, should we say. Driven predominantly back by the NHS back in the early 90s to give control over hot water that's coming out of an outlet. But obviously we then bring into the sort of fail-safe option. When I talk about fail-safe, I talk about if there was isolation of cold water, you don't get raw hot water through. So essentially, they are a comfort setting because they give you a delivered set temperature, but they're also, more importantly, and at the forefront of it, they're a safety device, which we fit to basins, showers, bidets, to give a safe working temperature to prevent scalding, essentially, is what we're looking to do with it. So.
And what responsibilities do different job holders in the construction market have to ensuring safe hot water?
Well, there's different standards. So we have what's called TMV2 and TMV3. TMV2 is more designed for the domestic market, so what we'd have in our home. So any sort of new build bathrooms, etc., should have a mixing valve controlling the basins or the outlets. And then we move into the realms of sort of DO8, where we talk about the healthcare, which is where the more higher specification valves are used because of the market that we're sitting in. Obviously, what we don't want to do is give people that are susceptible to illness or may have sort of limited movement, etc., access to raw hot water. So it is a very important place to be. We talk a lot to people about mixing valves. It's certainly something that we push through at CPD level. To try and get awareness out there to the requirements and why we need mixing valves, because they are such an important part of construction now. You know, when we're building new buildings, hospitals, care homes, nurseries, etc., they are at the forefront of what we do for safety of water, really. So.
And what are the regulations and the accreditations around TMVs that people should be looking out for?
Okay, so in TMV2 we have BSEN 1111 and BSEN 1287. Now at the 2017 edition of that. So what those are is the way we control water. One is high pressure, one is low pressure. So we have approval for both, and that's what we look for in TMV2. TMV3, we'll go for the DO8 standard, so that's when we bring the fail-safe function into where we are. So there is a test for the fail-safe function. All of our valves are 100% tested before they leave Italy. We have to do that to comply. But the main difference is the fail-safe function. So, you know, for example, if somebody was running a bath out of, two standard taps, a hot and a cold tap, you try and get your own blended temperature using your finger. If that goes wrong, it's an issue, so we give that delivered temperature through a mixing valve. If the cold water, as I said before, was to fail, what we don't want to do is for that valve to then pass raw hot water. So the way the valve is designed, the way it functions, it closes off the supply. The valve will no longer push any water through. So and obviously we have to adhere to what the healthcare systems say when it comes to their requirements within what those valves should be and how they perform. And there's some quite tight test standards around that as well, which is quite important.
So all really important for safety.
100%.
Yeah. That broadly wraps up the interview. Is there any other messages which you'd like to make sure viewers...
I think if we talk about mixing valves, I think the most important thing to remember with the mixing valve is, yes, it's there to deliver the comfort temperature, but what it also is a very important safety device. And I was at Installer Live last year working the stand, and a guy came up to me and he was fitting, I think he's had 150 bedrooms in a nursing home. And we talked through the whole regime of TMV2, TMV3, the different sort of valves that we have. And his question to me was, I understand that, but what's your cheapest valve? And at that point, I finished the conversation because I understand, again, we're all driven by price, but this is a safety device. I know that just a couple of weeks ago, there was an incident in Warwick where a 2-year-old child jumped into a bath of 60-degree hot water, 4th-degree burns. You know, child's on life support machine, so I wouldn't want that on my hands as a manufacturer. We have to make sure that we manufacture the standards, and that's why we want the people to fit them to understand what they're there for as well. So,
and that brings home the serious consequences
when
things aren't done properly, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you and I, as able-bodied people, we understand hot and cold water. There's people out there don't understand that, so we have to make sure these safe devices are there to protect these people. So,
Ed, thanks very much for joining me.
Not a problem. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Cheers.